Thunder, like you've seen it a million times.
Good morning, welcome back to American Truck Simulator. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm David Steele and here's me truck. In fact, let's take a look. This is a Kenworth K100E. It's not quite the truck I would really want to use for this particular engine, but it's close enough. Oh yes, this particular engine. Well, under the hood today we have an older Cummins engine. This dates back from the 1960s. This is the NRTO-6. That's a bit of a mouthful. What does that actually mean? Well, it's an NH class engine. It's the smaller capacity, so it's a 743 cubic inch or a 12.2 litre. And the NRTO is one of the higher power engines available in that size. This thing produces 335 brake horsepower. Yes, count them all. And that's a decent amount. Is that they produced at 2100 RPM. Some of the higher spec, bigger capacity NH engines actually will rep to 2300 RPM. This one will only go to 2100, but let's make no bones, that's a decent amount of power. Excuse me. Go ahead and get on the road today. We've got some lumber that we're taking, just over 31,000 pounds. So not a particularly heavy load, but heavy enough. I'm using a 13-speed today, 13-speed overdrive with a 411 final drive, which should be fairly well suited to this engine. In fact, it is pretty much. Arguably, you might want to have maybe a slightly shorter final drive, depending on the roads that you find yourself on. And I don't find it particularly bad. I mean, it's pretty handy to have a fairly tall top gear. This engine was added to the Steele Productions Engine Pack a couple of weeks ago as part of the Independence Day update that I bought to the Steam Workshop, which actually was subsequently followed by a couple of very minor small updates as I realised, oh, I forgot about this engine, and oh, I need to do this. It's been a lot of fun working with various engines here, and of course I get to use period trucks. So the K100, it's a cab over. That's pretty obvious. You can see it's cab over, and I like cab overs. They're very distinctive in a world of largely conventional trucks in American Truck Simulator, and especially what I see on the roads. Seeing a cab over is really nice to see. It's really good. And of course, this one is one of the smaller capacity units, but we're able to work it hard. And yeah, it likes the work. So it didn't need to downshift there. Although it wasn't going to accelerate more than 1500 revs, it wasn't losing speed. And some of the smaller or less powerful NH engines are, I'm not going to say they're anemic because they're correct for their time period, but yeah, they need a good dose of revs, and even though they don't actually perform particularly well. But the 335, I'm not going to say it's contemporary. It does have quite a big shortfall compared with modern engines. This thing only a torque shortfall. This thing only produces about 920 foot-pounds. I think it's 919 is the number that I've got. Yay, you better pull over. But back in the day, back in the 60s, trucks typically maybe had a gross weight of, well, I'm led to believe, 60,000 pounds as opposed to today's sort of 80,000 pounds. actually curious to see what our gross vehicle weight is today. Let's get on the engine brake. Okay, firmly braking down there. Let's see, what do we weigh? Hopefully about 65. 63, okay, so I wasn't far off. So this is more in what you might expect to see for the sort of mid to late 60s, as I understand. And if I'm happy to be wrong here. If you know different, let me know in the comments below. But with 63,000 pounds, only having 335 horsepower is less of a disadvantage compared with if you had 80,000 pounds. So I'm gonna get this thing up to 65. My speed limit is 80 or 75. It was 80 just a few seconds ago. This is a World of Trucks trip, so I'm not going to be able to reach 75. I'm speed limited to 65. I'm using this 13 speed today in automated mode because I'm lazy, and I find it very hard to change gear and narrate what's going on at the same time. What is this white SUV behind me doing? He's switched lanes a couple of times. Maybe because I've stopped accelerating, he's finally going to overtake me. I haven't finished accelerating. Okay, I have now. Oh, my exit's coming up anyway, so that helps. Yeah, we're losing a bit of speed here. So I know I could set the shift points to be a little more aggressive and have it rev that much higher, but in keeping with the lesser powered engines of the range, the 335, it feels really pleasant to drive compared with, say, the 220s and the 250s. The 12.2 litre engines available, this is the highest standard rating for it. There's also 300. That is the I think it's the NRT-6 that one's called, and that one's also quite a pleasant engine to run around with. Okay, cabo is going to be a little bouncy, and especially when you're braking with a bit of weight behind you. In fact, not just then. Let's move off. My voice is getting a bit squeaky, that's not good. So this engine most definitely has a turbocharger. You can hear the thing whistling away. Compare and contrast that with some of the other NH engines that are either supercharged or naturally aspirated. And they have a different, they're missing a turbo whistle. Supercharged whistle, I suppose you might say. And the higher spec 380 and 400 horsepower versions, they have a different turbo sound to them too. Okay. Taking a sip of water because yeah, my voice is suffering a little bit. There we go. Now the one engine from the 743 cubic inch range I haven't added yet is an economy tune version. That's the NTE-235, which, as the name might suggest, has 235 rated horsepower. I've got a 220 NH, and I've got a 250, also got a Super 250. Do I need something in the middle? I didn't think I did, but if you used to drive around, if you know someone that used to drive around in the 235 and you'd like to experience it, let me know in the comments below. So that's 65 at about 1600 revs, which it's a pleasant experience for this truck. Now, I do have an operations manual for the engine, and I believe, you know what, I've actually checked, but I believe that it might be recommending slightly higher cruising revs, in which case I want a slightly shorter gearbox. I'm going to run the red light. Wow, most definitely did. So this is like I'm in Texas. This thing is roly-poly. Oh yeah, look at that. Dang. Now I'd like to keep my speed up for this hill, but I'm overhauling this traffic in front of me, so I gotta lift off the power, maybe even brake. This is bad. This is terrible news. I don't want to do that. Now I've got to fight up against gravity. I've lost all that speed. I could have planned that a lot better. Plus, I'm almost sure I scared the white SUV driver as he saw this thing barreling up, and then the nose dropping as it nearly locks up its wheels to try and stop in time. Okay, well, we made it up the hill though. We didn't make too much of an effort of that, but that's an example of where having a lesser powered truck, on the one hand you might have been approaching it that much slower, but on the other hand you'll be that much harder to get back up to speed once you've had to slow down. So managing your energy and your closure with the traffic and hazards and hills and gradients, and that for me is the challenge of using a lesser powered truck. See, if I ran this trip in, let's say, Red Thunder with a 500 horsepower MX-13 or a 600 horsepower X-15, yeah, don't get me wrong, it would absolutely be a challenge. It's a fun road. But building up my speed again is that much easier. But something like this, something with only 335 horsepower, or more relevant, just over 900 foot-pounds of torque, that's a challenge. Speed down to 35, and I'm not in the city of jackpots, so I'm not going to upset anyone by engine braking, at least I shouldn't do. I mean, of course, there's always someone to upset, but it's not my intention here. What time of the day is it? It's 10 a.m. on a Saturday, so I would reasonably expect people would be awake. Reasonably expect. So the NRTO-6 is I think for me it's quite an interesting engine because it's the highest spec 743 cubic inch NH engine, and it was very quickly superseded by more powerful, larger capacity 855s. And when you review, you look at the Cummins engine range from the H and the NH. They were first around in, I think, the early 1930s. And the last engine that used that sort of block is the N14. And I think they were phased out in the early 2000s. So this engine was, depending on how you count the engine, it was in service for 70 years. It's seen a lot of evolution in that time. And don't think that the emissions laws only started changing in the last few years, because there was a big change in 1970. Actually, Cummins were a bit on the back foot for that. They had to work hard to get their engines up to spec. At the time the N14 was introduced, I think it was ahead of the emission standard by over 12 months when it was first released. And that's Cummins having clawed their way back from being behind the curve to being ahead of the curve. Now I know that since then they've had their ups and downs. We've had various technologies had to be implemented, and engines' reliability reputations took a bit of a knock with things like EGR, exhaust gas recirculation, and the associated problems there. The point is, though, emissions control issues is not a new thing. Yes, I think things are a bit different from the 1970 mandate. You mustn't have visible smoke, but the particulate output of engines, the nitrous oxide, those requirements have got progressively tougher and tougher over the years. Okay, yeah, set my cruise at 55. We'll see if we can actually get to 55. Got a reasonable chance. Something else as well, cargoes have gotten heavier. We've touched upon that a little bit. In the 60s, this engine might be expected to haul gross vehicle weight of maybe 60,000 pounds. Excuse me. And in the 2020s, 80,000 pounds. But this kind of truck is probably more realistic. Could this thing hold 80,000 pounds? Yes, it would likely be quite a bit thirstier and definitely slower than even an entry-level truck these days. A modern truck, that is. Would it be cheaper? Factor everything in. Maintenance, depreciation, fuel consumption. I think it would still cost more. I think there's a reason why people buy new trucks, and it's not because they like shiny things on the driveway at night. I think it's because there's economic reasons to have something like the Cascadia that's just coming towards us. One of your biggest costs is fuel, so if you can save miles per gallon, then you absolutely would. Another cost is drivers. And I would imagine if you only have a manual truck, if you don't have an automated transmission in your truck, it's going to restrict the drivers that you can hire, because not everyone can drive manual. I suppose you might call it a stick. If it's automated, it's one less thing to, well, one to worry about. It's harder to break, harder to damage. What is this guy doing here? I see he's dancing. Okay. Or maybe he is stepped on an ant's nest. I don't know. Yeah, so it's easier to recruit the drivers that you want if you don't have to worry about whether they can change gear or not, because the computer will do it for you. Is he stopping? I don't think he is. Okay. This guy might be. Is he? Yeah, I think he is. No, he's not. This SUV, maybe. No. Also not. Maybe yes. Yes, no, yes. Are you going? Well, I'm going. And here's where a 600 horsepower Cummins X15 would be very nice, because you just leave the parking lot and merge. A little tougher when you're in 300 and something horsepower. Still reckons my speed's 15, but I don't think so. Got the hammer down, but not that it makes much difference right now. There we go. So it's very interesting to see how this engine compares with some of the supercharged engines of a similar era. There were two supercharged models that I put in the engine pack. One has 290 horsepower and 778 foot-pounds of torque, I believe. And the other one has 320 and I think 856 foot-pounds of torque. So this engine's got more. This has got over 900 foot-pounds of torque, so it's got more torque available and more power. Would it be better? That's a pregnant pause, if ever there was. I think it depends on how you define better. And for the purposes of most drivers or most fleet managers in the truck marketplace, I suspect that the answer is yes, that the turbocharged version would be better. It's got a bit more performance. It's got the potential to be more efficient. Note the word potential there. And efficiency is really what counts an awful lot. If you can save 1 mile per gallon and your truck's doing 2,000 miles a week, and you go from, let's say, 5 to 6 miles per gallon, that's a big difference to your bottom line. Now, turbochargers have lag, and generally superchargers have a lot less lag. They sometimes do have lag, but they have a lot less. Now, superchargers sound cool, at least on a passenger car. Some of the supercharged Mustangs and the Dodge, Hellcat, Viper, Demon, whatever the heck they call that thing, with nearly 800 horsepower. Yeah, that thing sounds like it's going to eat you. Even the little Mini Cooper S, more specifically, the supercharged model before they went all turbocharged, that thing sounded great as well. Yeah, you could practically hear the thing gulping fuel, and that's why superchargers never really made it past 1969 engine year for the heavy-duty truck market. Anyway, I think I blathered on for long enough. Really today, what I wanted to do was just show off the smaller NH engine with the highest power output, 335. Yeah, there are definitely other engines. That was not a good change of view for me there. That really nerfed things out for me. So yeah, there are most definitely more powerful engines available. Really, game? I can't see a thing. But we we like the smaller capacity engines. They have the best potential for fuel consumption because they're simply smaller. And that's all things being equal, and of course they never are. Okay, I want to turn around. I wonder how easy that is to do. Okay, I probably wouldn't be doing it at quite this speed if in the yard in real life, but especially as I have an audience here as well. They're packing fruit, I think, or vegetables or something. See how well I can back this thing up, because the engine under the hood makes not that much difference to how well you can back things up. Although if you struggle to move it off to control it at low speed, it does make an impact. Right, this thing is not so bad, but a lot of the NH series of trucks do not have the greatest of clutch engagement torque, but they have enough. Should have. Hopefully. I may messed up a little bit there. We'll see. Right, well I think this just about wraps up today's video. I'm going to stay on and at least check my fuel consumption, because it should be somewhere a little bit over 5. Possibly high 5s, but I'd like to see. And of course, you know, even though this engine's been released to the engine pack, absolutely will I change things if it's not quite to what I want it to be. Okay, that's good enough for me. Let's see how well we did. Anyway, hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you have, you know exactly what to do. And if you didn't enjoy it, yep, you also know what to do as well. And feedback obviously helps. That's about 5 1/4 to the gallon, so it's a little less than I'd hoped, but it's not horrendous. It's still over 5. Okay, well, hope you enjoyed this, and hope to see you in the next one. Thanks so much. Goodbye.